Hello, I'm Nigel Griffiths. I work in the Advanced Technology Centre in the UK, part of IBM Europe. In this movie, we're going to look at installing Director6 on AIX6. First, though, we better learn a few things about Director6, how it's installed and updated. It's a different mindset to if you're a regular AIX systems administrator using things in the AIX mode of working. First of all, Director6 is platform agnostic. It will run on AIX, mainframe, IBM I, Linux on various platforms, even run on Windows. And so it's largely a Java-based application. And this has some implications. First of all, it's an enormous package to install. And when it installs, it's fairly slow because it is, after all, running Java. Next is that when you do the install of Director6, you will actually be installing the GA, the General Availability version that came out in October 2008, which in computer terms is truly an ancient historic version of Director6. And this means that the first thing you have to do is actually update Director6. Please do not use that original version to actually try and experiment with Director6 because there's been lots of bug fixes, lots of features that weren't available on day one have been added, and there's some new stuff in here as well. Now the way it does the update of Director6, unlike AIX where we'd use an install p package to do the update, we're actually going to use Director6 to update itself. Now this is a fairly complicated process as opposed to running a one-line command or using SMITI, but it is actually good to learn this process because this is how you'll do it in the future, and it's the same process that you'll use when you want to do updates to the endpoints that Director6 is looking after, whether you want to put updates into AIX, the HMCs, the firmware, all that sort of thing, is going to use this very much the same sort of process. So it is good to actually learn it fairly early on. Now Director6 actually tracks its own versioning of its own software. And it's not the AIX way of doing things. In AIX, I tend to use the lslpp command, and I grep for the tool that I actually want to find out what version it's at. That won't work. If you actually do that, you'll find that you'll always be informed that you're running this GA version back from 2008. If you actually use Director6 and do inventory on the machine in which you're running Director6 itself and look at the software versions, that will report the same way as AIX does. And so that won't actually change. You actually have to look at the Director6 features part of the inventory for the machine running Director6, and then you'll find that those updates that you've just done were actually implemented and now available. The second thing to note is that when you do an update, you need to actually restart Director6. It does give you some little warnings about this. If you log out and log back into Director6, it'll actually say there are pending updates that you should restart Director6 to get those implemented. Now, from early 2009, these are the official requirements for running Director6 on AIX. I've got a fairly small configuration, maybe 150 logical partitions, HMCs, VIO servers. So I'm going to go for the small configuration using the Derby built-in database. That makes life simpler too. But I have got a few comments about these prerequisites here. So these are my recommendations. You can take them if you want to. But these should avoid a couple of problems that I've hit, and to be quite frank, I've wasted a lot of time having failures to install Director6. First of all, it says one CPU. I tend to agree with that, but of course, unless Director6 has somebody online doing things on the Director6 website, actioning perhaps inventories or looking at data, or you've set up procedures to take an inventory perhaps at 3 o'clock in the morning for the various logical partitions that it's controlling, or if it's doing the regular checks to get performance stats, for example, and then action some procedures based on the results. If it's not doing those sorts of actions, then it won't actually need much CPU. There'll be a few little demons ticking around, taking up a fraction of a CPU. So allocating a whole CPU to the Director6 server logical partition is actually quite a waste of resources. And this is exactly why we have virtual CPUs or micropartitions, whatever you want to call them. And so we can give it an entitlement of 1, make it uncapped so it can use more CPUs if necessary, and use a virtual CPU number of, I recommend 4. I've seen, even just during the installation and the update of Director6, it quite happily using 3 CPUs. But when it's not using those CPUs, why not let perhaps your database or your web server or your application servers to actually use the CPU that Director6 was allocated. Next, on the memory size, first of all, absolutely mandatory, give yourself a good size paging space. The default with AIX, I think it's about half a gigabyte. Do increase that to about 2 gigabytes. If you run out of memory, even the installation can actually fail. 2.5 gigs is probably okay. I tend to be using 4 gigabytes of logical memory because I'm using AMS. Again, if Director isn't using all the memory, then we can actually move that memory to another logical partition. But that's optional on your part. On the disk space, I'm afraid there's a couple of mistakes in here. First of all, I've often seen Director hammering a single disk 100% for sort of 10 or 20 minutes at a throw. And so I strongly recommend that, although it says 4 gigabytes of space, in actual fact you need more spindles than that. I tend to say 4 gigabytes looks like one disk, or one tiny little disk, but you need a number of disks to actually get the I/O rate up. If you're using a fiber channel SAN based LUN and that's spreading the disks out, or spreading the I/O across disks, that'll be fine, and you've got some caching in there, that'd be good. If you're using this on a smaller machine, or you're using internal SCSI or SATA drives, then think about using more than one disk. In this demonstration, I'm actually going to be using one disk, but I will be able to cut out of the movie times when we just sit there waiting for the disk to finish up its work. Also, just after the install and update, I noticed that my /opt file system is sitting at 3.5 gigabytes, and I had a lot of problems when I actually ran out of space in /opt. So make that 4 gigabytes absolute minimum. More 8 gigabytes would be good. The next thing I noticed is that when I did the update to Director6 itself, it put a lot of the files into the root file system. This has to be a fairly dumb place to put the files, because typically in AIX the root file system is very small, and so I recommend putting at least 2 gigabytes of space into your root file system. You really do not want that to fill up. I think the update actually put 200 or 300 megabytes of data into the root file system. Right then, the first thing you should do is to download the IBM Systems Director software, of course. Surprisingly for IBM, it's in a place that you might actually guess. IBM.com, Systems with an S, Management, Director. We get to this web page here. On the right hand side here, you can see there's a movie that you could watch to get a bit of information. Over here we have some the value, marketing information, but down here, download looks about right. Various things we can download in here. The top one up here is Systems Director 6.1 is available for these platforms, so select a platform and download. That looks good to me. Of course, IBM wants to track who's downloading this stuff. First of all, you have to log in with your universal IBM user ID. If you haven't already got one, you can register. It only takes a couple of minutes if you haven't done that already. So let me log in. And I'll type in my password. There's a license attached to that. Of course, you need your legal representative to confirm that's a good idea. Okay, by default, it's going to use this download director to download things onto your Windows workstation. That's a good idea. Download director can do things like restart if the download failed, for example. But I tend to use the HTTP version because I download straight onto my AIX machine using Mozilla and AIX. Similar sort of entry, so though we have a download button over here now, and this looks like the good one that we want. This is IBM Director 6.1 Management Server Common Agent for AIX Install P format. That seems to make sense to me, so I'll click here on download. and I'll save the file. Now I've already done that, and I've saved that to my AIX based machine. Nice thing is that nice big file. It's going to take quite a long time. You could probably go for a cup of tea. In fact, you could probably go for lunch. It took about 2 hours in my case to download. Okay, I've downloaded my software and it's available on an FS server. I'm logged on to my brand new copy of AIX 6.1, and let's just check what level we're at. OS level -S. So we're at 6.1, technology level 3, and the first service pack that came out with technology level 3. Of course, don't use the GA version without the first service pack. I guess we all know that by now. Okay, let's check my paging space. I've increased that to 2 gigabytes in here. That'll save a problem or two. Let's look at df-g for our file systems. I've added 2 gigabytes to the root file system here. I've got 2 gigabytes in /home. I'll use that to do the unpacking of the downloaded file and do the install. And in /opt here, I've got 4 gigabytes of space. And in /mnt, I have the downloaded image. Now, a couple of little things we want to look at now. Okay, so let's use lslpp -l mgrep for anything with director in the title. And we can see here that AIX 6.1 technology level 3 already comes with common agent already installed, which is really nice, so I don't have to do anything. That's actually the current level as well. If you're an older version of AIX, then you'd have to go and do an install of that software. In this case, we don't have to do that. If you upgraded from an older version of AIX to technology level 3, you will find that it's not installed, only if you do a fresh install of 6.1. Okay. There's some other things that we could go and have a look at to see if they're installed or not. Expect is an open source type command, and we have that already installed. We can also look for something called TCK or tickle. I spelled it wrong. TCL, okay. And there's another one called TK, which I got confused there for a second. We'll see that those are already installed, and we need to know that in a moment. Change to the home directory where I'm going to unpack my files, and I'll bring back a command that I already prepared. So here we have the gzip command to unpack our file. This is the file that we downloaded in here on my NFS server, and then we're going to untar the file. So let's do that now. Okay, nice fast network, it's nice and quick. We do a df of /home. Try that again. We can see we've used just about, out of the 2 gigabytes, we've used just about 1 gigabyte. Okay, now we'll clear the screen again, and we have to make some adjustments to this install file, because that install file is for AIX3, older versions of 6.1 and AIX 6.1 technology level 3. So we have to make a couple of small changes. First thing I need to do is find the bundle files in this package, and so we'll now edit the director bundle. Now in here there's a few things that we don't want. First of all, we have a line here that says the AIX5 package for the XLC compiler, the runtime element. Now, this is AIX6, so we don't need that. In fact, it will complain quite badly if that's left in. And down here we have the expect TCL and TK. So we'll delete those here because those are already installed. It won't let me save that file, but we're root, we can force that. Okay. Now I'm going to copy that new bundle file to the repository that Smitty will actually use. So here's the file we just edited in /home, and we'll copy it to user system, system data, user bundles, and the same file name. Okay, now we should be able to do an install. So let's clear again. Smitty install. Next level down, and we go to install bundles. It will say where is the installation files. It's in the current directory. And it says which bundle do you want. So here's the director server. In here we can go down and accept the license agreement. Of course, you need your lawyer involved. While we're doing the install, I like to run a performance monitor just to check that something's happening here. We haven't got stuck. I'll make that a little bit smaller. Okay, there, we're all done. Now, did you notice a few commands came out and things that you still have to do? If we page down here, back one here, it says Open SSH is not installed and it's required if you plan to deploy agents with the agent installation wizard. This is where you get the director server to push an agent onto an endpoint, a copy of AIX in a logical partition. We'll leave that out of the scope of this movie. Perhaps we'll have another movie on Open SSH. There's a command down here we have to run. This is to configure the agent manager. To be honest, I'm not quite sure what that does, but we have to run it. And then we have to start up Director6. So we'll copy that command there now. And we'll come out of Smitty. And we'll run it. Now it says we need to enter the resource manager user ID that you would like to set for the agent manager. So when common agents start up on other machines, they'll talk to this common agent manager. Now it needs a user ID, so I'm going to use root. It asks for the password, and it asks to confirm that. Then it asks you for more passwords, and I don't know what these mean. I guess we could look them up in the manual. And do we want to use an existing agent manager? And the answer is no. And the answer is no. I haven't got one. I want one. Okay, my agent manager is installed now, and we need to start up the common agent and then start up Director itself. But how do we actually start up the agent? Well, that's tricky to find. The first command you need to look at is start a service platform agent, and it says it's already running. The next command is to actually start the common agent itself. The platform agent is sort of a lower level agent that the common agent talks to, and the command to do that is let me just show you here. Long and protracted and quite difficult to find, and it is already running. It actually starts with AIX, and the installation actually started it at the end. Quite why the common agent is referred to as the LWI non-stop profile, we may never know. But there you go. Okay, let's just check the status of the Director6 SM status. Okay, so it's inactive. Let's start it up. Excellent. We just check the status now. It's inactive. Don't panic. In fact, it'll take a while to actually go from the inactive state. There's a special command, -R, and it will sit there and tell you if the status has changed. We can see on our performance monitor it's quite busy, and as this is the first startup, I think it does some initialization as part of the startup. Okay, we've changed the starting status. Okay, we've gone to active status. It's now actually ready to use as a user. We can still see it doing things there on the CPU, not quite sure what. And we can also see a 280 megabyte Java processor sitting behind all this. A serious piece of software. Okay, let's log on now. We're going to the HTTPS, the secured service, the machine name here, colon, the port number is 8422 and IBM console. And it says it doesn't like that at all. It's asking for security certificates. So let's OK that, and we'll go into add an exception here. Want to add the exception, and we'll get the certificate down, and we know this is OK site. We just created it, didn't we? So confirm the exception, and we can log in. We'll quickly log in here as root. Of course, you could have other users if you have security users or admin users with the right permissions. I won't remember that. And we're into System Director 6. The first thing you'll note about System Director 6 is that you need a nice big screen. I'm using a 1000 by 768 here, and it's a little bit busy on the screen, and we have to scroll it up and down. We can see in here that this is a 6.10, and we need 6.11 ready to use. So on no account should you try Director 6 like this. You need to immediately do the update. If we look at About, we get a little bit of information. 6.1, nice and ambiguous. So if we go back to the welcome screen, here we can see that it's already found this common agent. This is for the machine we're actually using as the server, so it's talking to itself. Okay. The first thing we need to do is to actually take an inventory of ourself, so that Director6 can understand what level of software we've got on here. So We're going to go up here to inventory. We're going to discover a system. Something else we could do actually is here is to go to navigate. And we can look at the systems that it's found. It's actually found ourselves in here and we have access, that's good. If we click on this guy and take actions, we can go down here to inventory. And we want to collect inventory. We should find there's very little it knows about this machine until we've done the collection. Run now, yes. If we go to display properties, we'll monitor that task as it completes. Now it's running, 71% busy or complete. Okay, that's good. We'll kill that tab. I think we need to do a refresh. Collect the new data out of the database that it's just collected. There we go. Now, if we look at software in here, we have installed software. If we look at this, we should find pretty much what we can find with the lslpp command. And if you go through all this information, there's 1,500 items in here. Okay, that's improved so that now it finds there's one common agent involved and all the systems we have inventory collected. The next thing we want to do is to look into release management and updates. We need to update Director6 as the first task. First thing we need to do is select this settings up the top right. It says how we're going to connect to the internet to find the updates, and we can do a test connection. We've got a direct connection here. Right, nice and successful, it's okay with that. Okay, now let's hit the getting started. A nice little wizard running here. Next. Give it a name. Any other thing we're doing here? My updates. Wants to know which machines are involved. Well, here's our server, and we'll add that. If I hit this tab here, get rid of the menu and you can see what's going on in here. Okay, and I'll take this machine out. It's just that logical partition I want to be involved. I'll go next. We've already done a test, so we can go next. And we'll go finish. It's going to do this check for updates now. We want to do a run now. It would be good to schedule this as well so that perhaps once a day or once a week we'll go and find out if there are any new AIX images or Director6, HMC, VO server, those sorts of things. Okay, so now it started a job. It actually puts it onto a queue, and then internally Director6 will pick things off the queue, tasks to do, and go off and do that. So if we click properties, we can watch this item on the queue. So it's currently active. click on logs here, we should be able to see things happening. It's running. If we go down here, this is a log of everything it's doing. Fortunately, we can't see the whole thing on our screen here, but at least we can see it's doing things when it last did something. In this case, 12 minutes past 5 in the afternoon. Also, if there are problems, we can look in these logs in here and give clues about log files to go and have a look at, or what actually failed to happen as part of the update. One thing that's caught me out in the past is that we only seem to have one tab here, but there is a little arrow sign in here. If you click on the arrow sign, it actually shows you the rest of the tabs. Can get very confusing. Okay, we come back to the watching the job. We're 1% complete. Now, of course, typically you shouldn't do these sort of things online while you're sitting here waiting. Best to schedule these hopefully late at night when you have plenty of CPU power available on the machine, and you might as well get the machine to do some housekeeping while you're not there. Two. Okay, that took a quarter of an hour or so. Now we'll close this tab as it's 100% complete, and we'll look at show updates. We could see that from the main update tab as well. So there's a whole load of updates in here. In fact, there's 6 screens worth and 79 in total. Now, of course, we want to update Director6, and so we can see one here called Director Server Core, which is the one we're after. And we don't really want some of these other things in here. Some people will be interested, but System Z, the mainframe tools in here, System X, all very fascinating, but now I want to concentrate on 2. One is the Director Core itself. So here's the one I really want, 6111. So let's select that, and we'll click install. I think that may pull in some of the other ones as well as prerequisites. Okay, I want to install that on my LPAR 4. Add. Go down here and do it next. It's asking me do I want to install any missing update requirements, and I'll tick that, and I want that. Okay, and we can continue. It's saying it may require restarts, and yes, I'll do that. In actual fact, I think it will just tell me that a restart is needed. And there's a summary, and we'll do a finish to get those updates in. Run now, yes. Okay, and again we can display properties to monitor that task as it happens. Not recommended that you sit there and watch these things. It can take 20 minutes or so. Go back to show updates again. And we can see here that we're still searching on this director call. If I hit that X there, it will take off the filter. Look at the next tab. We can see here there's one called Power Systems Management. This is the other one that I want to have a look for. Okay, 6111 again. So I want to definitely make sure that that is installed, so I'll run another install task on that. There we can see the update going in, a lot of write activity to the disk. We can also see it peaking here to use all 4 virtual CPUs, spreading the workload across them. Remember, of course, in this case we have the server and the client on the same logical partition, so that would normally split out between the. Okay, then we got to 100% complete there. Let's have a look at the log file. Should be some more information in here. Again, I'm using a small screen, so you have to scroll up and down. Nope, not much more in there. Let's check the other update. We better wait for the other one to finish before we carry on.